She survived alone, on a forbidden island for 10 years, until the Alpha King traced her scent. Nobody believed she was still alive, and honestly, that was exactly what she wanted. Her name was Sarah, just Sarah. She had not used her full name in 10 years, not because she forgot it, but because names belong to people who have a place in the world. And she had no place. She had been taken out of every place she ever knew, thrown into black water, and left for dead on a night so cold that she still sometimes dreamed about the sound of ice cracking under her feet. She was 22 when it happened. She was 32 now, and she was still standing. The island had no name on any map. People called it the Forbidden Isle, the kind of place that old grandmothers warned children about in whispered stories. It was said that the soil there was cursed, that the trees grew in circles, that the sea around it never fully froze no matter how deep the winter got. Most people believed anyone who went there simply did not come back. Sarah had gone there. She had come back. Well, she had not left, which was a different thing, but she had survived. That counted for something. In the beginning, the island tried to kill her the way wild things always try. Slowly, methodically, without personal feeling. The first winter, she nearly starved. The second year, she broke 2 fingers trying to build a stone shelter and had to set them herself, using strips of bark and a lot of biting down on her own lip. The third year, she found the wolves, not the dangerous kind. Or, they were dangerous. They were absolutely dangerous, but they were not interested in hurting her. They were curious about her, the way children are curious about a strange insect. They circled her for 3 days straight, before the smallest one, a gray female with a torn ear, walked up and pressed its nose against Sarah's hand. After that, she was never fully alone. She built a life. That is the only way to say it, really. She built it the way you build anything, when you have no tools and no help. Slowly, badly at first, then better. She learned to read the weather from the way the clouds sat on the horizon. She learned which roots were edible and which ones would make her sick for a week. She learned to move quietly enough that even the birds did not startle when she walked past. She also learned something else. Something she could not explain to anyone, because there was no one to explain it to. She could hide herself. Not physically. She could not turn invisible or anything like that. But her scent, the thing that every wolf used to identify who you were, and where you came from, and what pack you belonged to, she could turn it off. Like a light switch. One moment she was there, traceable, real. The next, she was nothing. A blank space in the air. She did not know why she could do this. She only knew that it kept her safe. If you cannot be smelled, you cannot be found. If you cannot be found, you cannot be heard again. For 10 years, she kept that switch off. All the way off. She did not think about the mainland. She did not think about the night she was exiled. She did not think about the cousin who had watched them drag her away, with a small, satisfied smile on her face. She did not think about any of it. She was very, very good at not thinking about things. And then one morning, something changed. It was early, before sunrise, which was when Sarah liked to be outside. The sky was that deep blue color that is not quite night and not quite morning, and the sea was flat and quiet. She was standing on the cliff at the north end of the island, the same cliff she went to every morning, watching the horizon the way she always did. The wolves were restless. That was the first sign. They were pacing in circles behind her, which they never did. The gray female with the torn ear kept pressing against Sarah's leg and then moving away, pressing and moving, like she was trying to communicate something urgent in a language she did not have words for. Then the wind shifted, and Sarah smelled something she had not smelled in 10 years. Other wolves, mainland wolves, alpha blood. Her whole body went cold. Not from fear, or not only from fear. It was something older than fear, something that ran in her bones and did not have a clean name. She turned and looked out at the water. The fog was still thick, the way it always was before sunrise. But through it, she could just make out the shape of a ship. 3,000 miles away, 2 nights before, a man had woken up before dawn and could not explain why. His name was Kale, King Kale. Technically, the Alpha King, the man who ruled every pack on the continent, with a law that did not bend, and a silence that did not break. People who worked for him said he had not smiled in 6 years. People who knew him, really knew him, the very small number of people who counted, said that was not quite right. He had not smiled since the night his fated mate disappeared. He had looked for her. That is important to say. He had not shrugged and moved on. He had searched every forbidden coast, every cursed island, every place the records said she might have gone. He had searched for 6 years without finding anything, which had slowly turned him from a grieving man into something harder and quieter and more dangerous. His second in command, a man called Dax, who had been his closest friend since childhood, had watched this happen and had said nothing. Because what was there to say? The bond between fated mates was not something you recovered from. You either found them, or you carried the absence like a stone in your chest for the rest of your life. And then that morning came. Cale woke up, and for the first time in 6 years, his wolf was not quiet and heavy inside him. It was moving. It was pulling north with something that felt almost like hope. He told Dax. Within 4 hours they were on a ship. Sarah did not run. She had a plan for exactly this situation. She had always had a plan. And the plan involved slipping into the forest interior and disappearing so completely that any visitors would search the island, find nothing, and leave. She had practiced it. She was very good at it. But when she turned to go, the old woman was standing in the doorway of the stone cottage. She went by Rin. She was ancient in the way that some people are ancient. Not just old in years, but old in the way her eyes saw things. Old in the way she spoke, like she had been sitting with her words for a very long time before she said them. She was blind. She had been blind since before Sarah arrived on the island, and she had been the only human being Sarah had spoken to in 10 years. "He is here," Rin said, not as a question. "I know," Sarah said. "I am leaving." "You cannot suppress the bond forever, child," Rin said. "It is already breaking open." Sarah stopped walking, because she could feel it. Something inside her, something she had locked away and ignored and pretended did not exist, had cracked, like ice in spring. Just a hairline crack. But it was there. And the sense suppression, the ability she had relied on every single day for 10 years, was flickering. She stood very still for a long moment. Then she went back inside and picked up her knife. If she could not hide, she would face it. That was always the second plan. She met him on the beach. He was taller than she expected, and quieter than she expected, and he was looking at her with an expression she did not have a word for. It was not hunger, not exactly. It was not possession. It was more like relief. Like a man who has been holding his breath for 6 years and has just been allowed to exhale. She pressed the blade against his throat before he could speak. "You are trespassing," she said. Her voice was flat and even. She was proud of that. "This island is forbidden. You know that. Leave before the tide turns, and you will get back to your ship without a problem." He did not move away from the blade. He looked at her steadily and said, "I know your name." "Good for you," she said. "Leave. Sarah." Just that, just her name, in a voice that had been carrying it like something precious and heavy for 6 years. Her hand did not shake. She was very careful about that, but something behind her ribs did. He did not push. That was the thing she did not expect. She had expected him to demand, to invoke his authority, to remind her that he was the Alpha King, and that no one said no to the Alpha King. Instead, he set up camp on the beach, not close to her cottage, not in her space, just on the beach. And he waited. He waited for 3 days. He ate food from his ship. He talked to Dax in quiet voices. He did not approach her, but she watched him. She could not help it. She watched the way he sat in the mornings staring at the water, the way he was careful around the island wolves, the way he spoke to them slowly and respectfully, like he understood they were not his to command. She watched him, and she felt the crack inside her getting slightly wider. On the 4th day, Rin called her inside and told her everything. The bond mark on Sarah's wrist, the one she had always thought was just a scar from the night she was thrown into the water, was not a scar. It was a mate mark. It had been burned over deliberately, on the night of her exile, to hide what it was, to hide who she was connected to. Her exile had not been a pact decision. It had been her cousin's decision. Falsified documents, a bribed captain, a carefully constructed lie that said Sarah had broken pack law and was sentenced to banishment. In reality, she had done nothing. She had simply been someone her cousin wanted gone. Sarah sat with this information for a long time. She did not cry. Crying felt too small for something this large. She just sat very still, while it settled into her, like cold water filling a room. Then she got up, walked out of the cottage, and went to find the man sitting on her beach. She sat next to him. She did not speak right away. Neither did he. They looked at the water together for a while. The wolves sprawled around them both. And for the first time in 10 years, Sarah felt something she had completely forgotten how to feel. Safe. It did not stay quiet. Her cousin had been watching. That was the thing about people like that. They always kept watching, even when they thought they had won. When word reached the mainland that Kale's ship had gone north, she moved fast. Within a week, 4 Allied Alphas arrived at the island's shore with ships and official documents, claiming they had authority to clear the forbidden territory. Sarah walked down to the beach. She did not bring the knife this time. She stood in front of 4 Alphas, and she turned her scent suppression off for the first time in 10 years. All the way off. Completely. Every wolf on those ships went still. Because what came off her was not the scent of an exile, of a criminal, of someone who had no pack and no standing. What came off her was something older than all of them, something that ran beneath the whole bloodline of every wolf that had ever existed on that continent. The wolves on the ships did not know what it was, exactly. They only knew that something in their blood recognized it, and bowed. Kale stood behind her and said nothing. He did not need to. The documents were checked. A council was called right there on the beach, with the sea as witness. The forgery in Sarah's exile paperwork was found within an hour, because when you are looking for something, and you know exactly where to look, these things are not as hidden as people hope. Her cousin, back on the mainland, watching through means that do not need explaining here, understood in that moment that it was over. She triggered something she had put in place years ago, a kind of trap, a hidden curse laid on Sarah the night of the exile, designed to destroy the bond mark if it was ever fully revealed. The curse hit Sarah like a wave, and the island caught her. That is the only way to describe it. The ground beneath her feet seemed to hold her upright. The air steadied. Something in the soil of Morveth, the old bones of the first wolves, the ones who had lived there before packs and kings and politics existed, simply refused to let her fall. The curse broke apart like smoke. Gone. Sarah stood there, breathing hard, and looked at her hands. They were shaking slightly, which she decided she was allowed. After that, things moved quickly on the mainland. Her cousin was brought before the full council, the real story laid out piece by piece. There was no dramatic speech, no long argument. The truth was just the truth, quiet and heavy and impossible to ignore. The outcome was banishment, permanent, without appeal. The 4 Alphas knelt to Sarah on the beach before they left. Not because anyone told them to, just because, when you understand who someone actually is, the right thing to do becomes obvious. Sarah did not go back to the mainland right away. She needed time. That was the honest answer. She had been alone for 10 years, and she had rebuilt herself from nothing, and the person she had become was someone she actually liked. She was not willing to lose that person in the rush of everything happening around her, so she asked for time. She was not sure how Kale would take that. He built something on the beach. She is not entirely sure what to call it. It was between a shelter and a home, put together over 2 weeks, with wood and rope, and a patience she had not expected from a king. He did not pressure her. He showed up every morning and was simply there, and some days they talked and some days they didn't, and slowly, without any single moment she could point to, the distance between them closed. The gray wolf with the torn ear decided she liked him on the 14th day. Sarah decided, watching that happen, that she trusted the wolf's judgment. Old Rin passed away quietly in her sleep the night everything was resolved. Sarah found her in the morning, and she sat with her for a long time before telling anyone. She had the feeling that Rin had simply been waiting for the story to land safely before she let go. That sounded like her. This is the thing about survival that nobody tells you. It is not actually about being strong. Sarah had thought, for years, that what she was doing was being strong, that the whole point of what she had built on that island was proof that she did not need anyone, that she was enough on her own. And she was. She had proven that beyond any reasonable doubt. But being enough on your own is not the same as choosing to be alone. Those are two completely different things. One is capability, the other is fear, with a better story attached to it. It took her 10 years and a forbidden island, and a man who sat on her beach for 2 weeks without asking for anything to understand the difference. The last image of this story is a simple one. Early morning, before sunrise. The sky, that deep blue color that is not quite night and not quite day. Sarah on the cliff at the north end of the island. The same cliff she has stood on every morning for 10 years. Except this time, she is not alone. He is standing next to her, looking at the same horizon she has been watching by herself for a decade. The wolves are sprawled in the grass behind them both. Nobody is speaking. The sea is flat and quiet. She is not watching the weather this time. She is watching him watch it. And she is, very quietly, without making a big thing of it, at peace. And